Today's episode is being brought to you by Diesel Fuel Prints. Diesel Fuel has been printing my stickers for about 20 years now. He's been in the business since 1991, and he is the highest quality weatherproof stickers you can get anywhere. DieselFuelPrints.com has easy online ordering, and you can get a quote on any size and shape sticker you could possibly want. Full color printing, as well as black and white printing, starting as low as $25 for 125 pieces. Shipping's always free, and you can check that out at dieselfuelprints.com. And at checkout, if you use the discount code AWP 2021, my listeners will get 10% off of their order. So yeah, check it out. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is Sean Glaze. Sean is a professional animator in the animation industry here in Hollywood. He's also a guitar player. If you remember from the Keir Gilchrist episode, Keir's in the bands Whelm and Phalanx, and Sean is a guitar player in both those bands. Those guys are very tight friends, and they do a lot of stuff together. Talking to Sean about what it's like to be a professional animator, what his work situation is. Really fascinating to know what it is like to be a professional animator in this age where animation is such a huge part of the entertainment market. Great guy, super, super funny. There'll be a Patreon bonus episode with him where we were talking. He was cracking me up. He's such a funny guy. As always, you can find the links to his stuff in the description below. He's got a Twitch and Instagram and all this stuff. He's a huge online presence. My Patreon, link to my Patreon's down below. I'm really going to start boosting the amount of content I put on the Patreon here as I go forward. I appreciate all the patrons that I have already, and you can find the links to the merch down below as well. And this is a really great, interesting episode, listening to somebody talk about their professional life in an industry you may not hear people from talk about very often. So yeah, let's get to it on the other side of this. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today's guest is animator and musician Sean Glaze. What's up, Sean? How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Just trying to keep myself from melting like a sweet little man made of honey. Just scooping puddles of myself back in, and my titty fell off today, and I put it back on. So I don't know, man.
Sean told me that he had to sacrifice his air conditioning for recording this because it would be too loud. So he's sitting there dying in the LA heat.
Listen, man, my standards for audio perfection outweigh my physical comfort. And it's for you. I'm a martyr dying upon my oven.
That's awesome. People who listen to this show are familiar with my guest Keir Gilchrist, who his episode was crazy popular. Sean is the guitar player in Keir's band, so that's the connect for my audience to who Sean is to a previous guest. And then Sean is also an animator, and anybody who listens to this show knows that that is what I went to school for. And so, we have that in common as well. So I want to chat a little bit about what it's like to work in the modern animation industry, because that's when I moved to LA, I came out here and got into games, and it was before 3D games. It was a lot of 2D stuff, and so we worked with a lot of animation studios on licensed stuff, like Hanna-Barbera. We did Johnny Quest stuff and some Warner Brothers stuff. So I had to do a bunch of animation tests for bugs and all that stuff. But this was in the time when everything was switching to digital ink and paint, and all that kind of stuff in the mid 90s when you were probably 6. And then at some point when the original Space Jam came out, I got an offer to switch over to doing feature animation, and then going into the 2D kind of TV and feature animation world, and decided to stick with games. And I always kind of felt like that was not my smartest move. I probably should have stayed in animation because I became an animator because I loved cartoons so much. And is that kind of how you found your way there? Or
Just through liking cartoons.
yeah, I mean, how did you find yourself becoming an animator? Did
Um,
you go to one of the animation schools?
yeah. It's weird because I feel like I always liked cartoons a lot. Like I liked '90s cartoons. I liked anime. I watched Dragon Ball Z. I probably drew the most when I was like trying to like figure out how to draw big old buff Dragon Ball Z boy muscles, and I um, but I didn't know that I wanted to do funny animation for a long time. I started doing it for fun to like make my friends laugh. Like I made like little flip books. I would mess around with older versions of Flash that we pirated, that my dad pirated from a torrent site or whatever, and uh from Kazaa, and I it for a while it was like the animation that I liked doing the most um was also not not appropriate, or something like. I guess a better way to phrase it is around that I had started to paint and I started doing fine arts, and my mom was a fine artist, my family is full of like artists, and so it was almost like their version of, like, we're a doctor, you become a doctor, that kind of thing. I felt that pressure to, like, if I was gonna go to college and pay all this money to go to art school, like, is that weird to go and just like fuck around and make fart cartoons? And so I think when I started off, I was like trying to like take myself really seriously, and there came a time when I was putting a lot of effort into this stuff, but I didn't like my ideas, and the drawings that I was doing were stupid, and like trying to be artsy and conceptual, but but I noticed that like outside of class, I was like dreading working on it, and I was like, well, that's not right. And so I went on. I like finished my junior thesis storyboards, and then I went on Christmas break. And over Christmas break, for fun, like with my buddy, I just started drawing this guy with a fist for a head, and he's like powering up like Dragon Ball Z, and all his parts are turning into fists, and then he starts punching people with his fist parts. And I was like, dude, I just made the storyboards for like a whole other film as a joke, and I did it in like 2 days for fun, and it was like pulling teeth for the other one. So I scrapped the other one, and I came back from break and surprised my teachers, and they were like, "What is this film?" And I was like, "This is what I'm gonna do because this is fun." And then when I came out with, I mean, like my teachers gave me all kind of notes, and I didn't listen to any of them, and I just came out with it and I did it. And when I put it on YouTube, I got this validation. Well, that and Newgrounds, like um, the cartoons that I was the most influenced by weren't necessarily cartoons that I saw on TV. It was like the new era of like internet shorts that were very fast paced. All the jokes were very, um, it was hyper. All the jokes were very fast. Like almost every shot was a joke. Um, and that was probably what I was influenced most when I first got into like comedy animating stuff. And when I put it on YouTube, like it was the first thing I had ever made that got any attention. I had like two or three animation companies reach out to me. My first like two or three jobs were from this short that wasn't even my senior thesis. And like, and I was like, I am doing something right by listening to what I want to do instead of like what I think other people would want me to do because it's more beautiful or something like that. So that's, I guess that's the start, my start in it.
Yeah, we just had a little technical difficulty, so this is going to be a weird edit here. But Sean was just saying that he got his first validation from a piece that he put up on YouTube, and my comment on that is that it's kind of a testament to how things work nowadays for your generation? You know, obviously I came up in a time there was no such thing as YouTube, and it's like just to be able to no matter what kind of art you make, whether it's an animated thing or, you know, drawings, paintings, music, or whatever, like you don't need the traditional systems anymore to get where you want to go the way that it used to be. And you know, there's a lot of people I see. I do a little bit of film work, graphic design and illustration for films, and so I in those message boards quite a bit. And you know, a lot of the old people are like, it's just too easy nowadays and it's like, why should it be hard? Why should it be hard? You know what I mean? Like, why should anything be harder for anybody
No,
than it needs
it's
to be?
true, but it's also like it's just so easy nowadays, and it's also like then it should be easy for you too nowadays.
Right.
Like, are you dead? Are you dead? like, I mean, I know that there's some people that are like, I don't want to learn the new thing, but I mean, we all have to learn new things as our crafts expand or
they
go
learned how to
forward or
use a
whatever.
phone, a smartphone. You know, if you can learn how to use a smartphone, you can learn how to do anything.
Yeah, there's a big like age divide, I think, in animation right now. Like there's a lot of folks that
there's an age
don't
divide
like
in there's a cultural age
That's
divide
true.
in everything. Fuck, it's crazy.
That's true.
I don't like it. I don't like it, and I try my hardest at all times to not be a part of that. Like I'm, you know, I don't know how much of it is me trying to stay young at heart and just always be learning what new stuff is happening, but I don't like gatekeeping, and I don't like well, back in my day kind of shit at all. Like I'm like, oh wow, someone's doing something new, like that's cool. Like how is it work? You know, how is it working? And it's like I have my moments where I'm trying to figure something out and I can't, and then I just want to bin it. But that's more about me than anything else.
That's just you in like a shirt that says teen on it, and you're like, "What's up, fellow adolescents? Hey, guys." No, dude, I get it, and like I can understand it to a certain degree, but I like it. It is it's a very different landscape, even from like when I was going to school, all my professors taught one thing, and I had a professor that was learning how to use a program alongside when he was teaching it in the class. Like he was like a chapter ahead, and we were all like, "What is going on?" But I mean, all of those guys started, you know, doing animation on paper, and I mean that at the end of the day, like that's where I started too. Like I learned how to animate on paper and do claymation and do like experimental sand on glass. And then like,
where did you go to school?
I went to a very generalist school. It was called University of the Arts in Philly.
Oh, okay.
And it's very like, if you want to go to a school and you just want to draw cartoons that are in 2D in Toon Boom or Flash or whatever, like it might not be the school for you. Like I went there, and originally I was like learning how to do like 3D stuff in Maya, and you know, in the same day I would animate on paper, and like we were building a puppet in stop motion. And I think that some of those basics and sort of dabbling in everything was for sure cool, but it very much was a school that taught people to become an experimental animator that works in a cafe and submits to a film festival every 2 years, you know?
Right. Right. My animation teacher, I found an animation program in the Bay Area that was at a junior college, and it was run by this woman whose name I can't never remember, who won an Academy Award for this like super artsy fartsy animated short about a cat. And she was that person, like the experimental animation person, but she was an amazing animator. And I learned everything I needed to know. Just like I only was there for like the animation course. There was like, you know, was like a whole year. So there wasn't like I went to animation school. I took this class and I learned how to do it. And then I was able to apply it to the video game industry before everything went 3D. and I was kind of getting into games when things were starting to transition. But I learned how to animate on paper too, and it served me really well because when I worked at a company owned by Virgin. It was like after they sold Virgin Games, they started this little edutainment company called Virgin Sound and Vision, and so I was the animator there, and it was like I when it was time for them to try to get the Warner license, I was able to do, hand drawn Bugs Bunny scenes that Warner Animation Studios would be like, oh, okay, they know how to do this. You know what I mean? Like it ended up serving me really well.
Yeah.
And then, then I went over into 3D Studio Max and Maya and stuff, and kind of never really did much animation on paper again, which sucks because I don't even draw on paper anymore. Like I like 100% on of my way to comp Cintiq for everything, if even for paintings.
No, me too. Me too.
So it's like if I was gonna animate anything anymore, I think it would definitely be, well, I would be drawing it on my tablet, which
The only time I use I do use like paper and pen for my more illustrative, darker kind of style, just because it's an excuse for me. Like I do get I get burnt out on the Cintiq a little bit. So it is nice to be able to return to paper and get that grit and like get that the roughness of paper
yeah,
and
just that
the roughness
tactile.
of those
Yeah.
lines. Yeah, so like any of the like the band art and stuff that I do, I usually do on paper. But I mean, I spent a vast majority of my time drawing on a screen for sure.
Yeah. It's I always figured that because I used like a regular Wacom forever, just like the to on the desk tablet. I didn't have like a tablet monitor, and when I got my first one, I was like, well, I'm still gonna draw on paper, and then I'll just scan it and like I'll sketch on paper and scan it and then do my final art on and then like within like 30 days, I was like, oh, I don't have to have a stack of fucking useless drawings in the corner that anymore. Like I can just do it all here. And you know what? My illustration work has gotten, I mean, it just by leaps and bounds got better. Being able to edit instead of just because I'm like a work super fast type of person, and so if I'm working on a
Yeah,
drawing and there are some lines I don't like, I'm not going to stop and redraw everything. I'm just going to live with those lines being how I don't like. And now I don't
yeah.
have to. I don't have
No,
to do
like
it.
early on in my career, I stopped drawing with pencil to train myself to be more deliberate about my lines, and so
Hmm.
I pretty much only draw in pen. And if I do ever erase, I have like a whiteout tape. Every once in a while, I use that on like really big errors, but at the beginning, learning how to just either work with my mistakes or be very like think about what I'm doing before I draw something, and learn how to visualize it and translate it. I think that was big training for me because my first job in the animation industry was making a short with a very small team that was like 2 to 3 minutes long every single week and releasing it on YouTube. So
Oh, wow.
we had like a 6 person team, like one, and we would trade off and rotate which one was directing it and controlling the style of the short. And then certain people would do background, certain people would do animation, and they had to have a short every single week. And so in my first year doing professional animation, I think I worked on, we counted it up, but it was like 37, 40 shorts or something like that
Oh,
in my
wow.
first year. And we didn't have I didn't have time to do rough animation anymore. I had to just do straight ahead animation. So in my off time, I was practicing how to draw something right in the first go, just like grinding on it. And
What
that
I
was
know you can't
formative.
really talk about what you're working on now because it's all top secret, but what other shows have you worked on?
Um, I've worked on a bunch. I've worked on my the first two shows that I ever worked on were with this company called Fox ADHD, which was it was like a mercenary company hired by Fox to make a version of Adult Swim, a new Fox block. And so we made this. I worked on this cartoon called Stone Quackers. I worked on this cartoon called Lucas Brothers Moving Company, and Stone Quackers was similar enough to regular show on Cartoon Network, and so I hopped over to regular show, and I did storyboards and wrote dialogue on that show, and then. I've been all over the place from Disney XD. I worked on this show called Pickle and Peanut. I've back um, uh, at Adult Swim. I worked on a show called Tig Tone. At Netflix, I've worked on a show called The Midnight Gospel. Warner Brothers, I've worked on uh, a couple of things. I worked on Teen Titans Go, and then I'm actually not sure if I can say the other things either.
It's
I worked
fine.
on
It's fine.
I've worked on two films recently for Warner Brothers that I don't know if I can say, but I've skipped around a lot, and I've done a lot of work with this studio called Titmouse, who
Hmm.
now does a majority of Netflix's animation, but they were known for doing a lot of
Well,
Adult Swim
famously
animation
for
like Metalocalypse and stuff.
Metalocalypse, yeah. That was like
Yeah,
their yeah, um I've always been a fan of the stuff that Titmouse out going all the way back. They did a Beastie Boys video like a long time ago, and I was like, I'd love the Shadrach video. But yeah, Titmouse stuff is really awesome. I have a lot of friends who are friends with those guys, and
dude, Chris Panoski, who runs Titmouse, it's such a good example of the good things that happen from an animator running an animation company. Because I feel like there are a lot of animation studios that it's not a creative person at the top, and he I mean he was an animator that like he directed that Beavis and Butthead sequence with the Rob
mhm,
Zombie
mhm.
style where they trip in Beavis and Butthead Do America. He worked on like Daria and like old Liquid Television, and
Yeah,
I had him on my podcast slash drawing competition show that I do on Twitch.
I saw that.
Um, it's called Dueling Drawing Requests, and I brought him on and we did a live animation battle for 5 rounds. And
What do you
it's just
animate
like
in for something like that?
I mean people can do it in whatever they want. I usually use Adobe Animate because it's what I work the most just the quickest in. But people can come on and they can work in Storyboard Pro or whatever they want. I mean, it's basically just them sharing their screen on Zoom like
Sure.
this, and I composite it into the stage that I have for it. But we just do like these 5 rounds animating live. But he is such a a wealth of information, and he just has a million stories. Because I mean, just like we're just being the studio that made like Super Jail and Metalocalypse and Venture Brothers, like just all these like shows that had like wild animation and
Did they
did
do
new
Venture
ideas.
Brothers?
They did a bunch of Venture
Oh
Brothers.
man, that
At
show
first,
was
it was
so
a different
good.
studio. Yeah, man. They I mean they've done so much crazy stuff, and now I think recently they signed like a thing with Netflix where they're going to be doing like most of Netflix's animation, and so I mean, they that studio has expanded to like 3 or 4 other branches in different parts of the country. Like,
Wow.
it's really cool to watch it grow. And Chris is such a rad dude. He was the first one that gave me a chance creatively outside of being an animator to like my ideas. So like
Mm.
he had originally had approached me like that same cartoon with the guy with the fists
Mm-hmm.
powering up, like he was one of the people that reached out to me. I think somebody had shown him the cartoon and he wanted to try to make it a web series with Titmouse. And so I had started building it out with Titmouse for the first time, like they were like, we love your idea, can we help you make more of it? And then we turned that into a pitch, and then we pitched that to Adult Swim, and then we were making a pilot with Adult Swim of it, and it didn't work out. I mean, I think I was younger. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was sort of inflexible with the notes that they were giving me, but that studio was the most open to my weird, crazy ideas, and being somebody that was fresh out of school. I think that meant a lot.
Are you originally from the Philly area? Is that why you went to school there?
Yeah, right outside of the city, sort of the suburbs of Philly. Yeah.
I've had a lot of guests from Philly. There's a lot of Philly people in LA. So it doesn't surprise me that you're a Philly. Actually, I'm recording an episode tomorrow with somebody who is physically in Philly right now.
Oh, hell yeah. Who's that?
My friend Richie Goodtimes. He's
Nice.
one of the greatest graphic designers I've ever known. Um, his work is amazing. I'll send you a link
That's
to his
dope.
stuff. He's
Hell yeah.
and he's just like we're like brothers. We've been really really good friends for decades. But
That's awesome, man. It's weird that like, are there certain people that you've met through the art world, and then certain people that you've met through the music world, even though you're both artists? Like, do you have like a good mix there?
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
did you meet him through the art world, or like through like touring or something?
Through the art world? There used to be, it's been talked about a little bit on this show before, because I have a lot of guests from this world, but there used to be a website called gigposters.com, and it was just an archive of rock posters, punk flyers,
That's so
like
dope.
everything.
That's so
And
dope.
this was like from like 2000 to about 2010, and the message boards there were insane. Like the level of talent and the level of people, like real high level graphic designers and illustrators that were in the message board every single day. And that's kind of how I got my start it's how I really got an illustration and design career, was from all the contacts I made there.
That's so funny, man. Because it's changed, but there's still things like that right now. A
Sure.
lot of artists use the Discord community, and they're it's sort of like these different rooms that and like forums where like you make a piece of art and then you post it in these 15 Discords you're in, and then people talk about it and you talk to them and they get to know you. And like I helped run a Discord or two over the quarantine, and it was like a lot of people's source of community, like hopping in a voice chat every day and screen sharing while they worked on stuff or whatever. And it's just like I mean, it's just strangers that like hop in there, and as long as they're genuine and they're chill, like almost anybody's down to like give a young person advice about something they're doing. It's just funny how that sort of vibe shifts, but like there's still it's in a different place, I think, but there's still community sort of like that.
Oh, for sure. For sure there is. There's a really good Facebook message group, and they also have like a Zoom call. It's the Dark Art Society. And it's kind of run by Chet Zar. Are you familiar with Chet Zar? He's like
I'm not.
he's
Hold
like
on, let me look them up.
super well known, like kind of dark art painter. He was in visual effects in films for a long time. He's an amazing sculptor, and Chet Zar's the guy.
Oh, I've totally seen his stuff everywhere.
yeah,
Okay, yeah. His stuff is dope.
So he has a podcast, and then he has this message board, and it's just full of artists, and it is that exact community that you're talking about. They do like a Friday night
awesome,
Zoom call
man.
where everybody just kind of, because it's international. Like it'll start at like 5 o'clock in the evening and go until like 5 the next day, because there'll be people all over the world just like, man. And then you gotta look. That
That's so
goes
dope,
back
man.
to what we were talking about before, about like the way things work now. Like you would have just never had access to that. Even when gigposters.com message boards were going, like there was, up until that time, there'd never in the history of art had there ever been a place where that many high level working professionals interacted on a daily basis. It was
Yeah.
really, and now with like streaming and all that other stuff nowadays, it's like exponentially bigger than that. And I think the challenge though is, because it is so open and there's so many people anybody can put their work anywhere in front of anybody. I think sometimes it's hard to stand out. I notice for sure for me, like I'll look at Instagram and I'll see, artists where I'm like, this person is not that great, and they'll have like 50,000, followers, and I'm like,
Yeah, and half the time it's because
not that I'm the
they-
judge of anything, but
No,
you know
no,
what I
no,
mean?
no. But it's like there's certain people that buy into the rules and follow these rules, and like for instance, that person might make topical art that follows a certain trend or a certain
Yeah,
hashtag or a
that's
certain
usually
game
it.
that just came out, or and additionally they might post a certain amount of times a week to keep up their
That's
flow
another
and to
part,
keep the
right?
algorithm working for them. And it's sort of it turns artists more into businessmen and publicists, businessmen and women and publicists, like than ever before. Like you have to, like, you're learning these rules and ways to market and sell yourself. And traditionally, a lot of artists have some trouble with that, like merging sort of like, I want to make art and express myself with like business time, put on the suit and I'll make a presentation and here's how to package myself, and all the colors on my website are pink because pink makes you horny and I want people to come into my art and be turned on. Whatever it is. Like,
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally get it. No, I mean that's legitimately a lot of what goes on in the art world now. It's been talked about with some other people on this show before, where it's like, um, but one of the things that apparently is still not happening. I was talking to a guest, Kristen Farrell, and she speaks at art schools and stuff quite a lot. And she's like, they still don't teach business at art schools. Like they don't teach anybody how to actually run an art business once they're actually out of school, and
you
that
know what
just
that
seems
is.
fucking
You know
crazy.
what, you know what that is. It's because a lot of art school teachers don't know because they are currently not engaged in that community now. I mean, there are a lot of art teachers that went to college for art and then became art teachers. So
Right.
and have never really engaged in that business sort of marketing yourself space. I mean, I do know plenty of teachers that are and do and are actively working and are super knowledgeable, but I think that it really is on a teacher to teacher basis.
There should
And
just be a course where they bring
yeah,
somebody like an entrepreneur, a
sure.
small business person in and be like, hey, guess what? You're going to have to make money off of this stuff that you've learned how to make in here, and teach people, especially in the modern age, like teach people how to set up. It's like Kristen was saying that the last school she talked at before the pandemic, they were still telling artists, like students, that they needed to have a physical portfolio, and that was something they were going to have to be prepared to mail out to people. Like she's like, are you out of your mind? Like like it you should have a website, and that's about all you need. And it's
Yeah, no,
like,
I mean,
it's
nobody
weird that
wants to
art's
like, oh, you hand him a CD with your work on it. Like they're gonna go home and like and plug that in. Like they're gonna keep they're gonna have a big old CD sized bulge in their pocket all the way home, and they're like, I gotta go home and boot this up, and I'll and then I'm gonna keep the CD later just in case I need to hire them. I don't know, man. It's great.
so
It's
goofy.
crazy. It's crazy.
So goofy.
No, but
Oh,
I mean that's how stuff changes, and I mean I think that that's the reason why an older generation reacts the way they do to this stuff is I mean in a big way is because of that. I mean like getting jobs is different, getting hired is different, getting um making contacts is different. They brought, I'm sure that people feel like they go onto a crew and they have trouble making friends the way they used to. I mean, like, that's just how it. I mean, half of the people that I talk to and interact on the daily are people that are keyed into like a Discord or they're on Twitch every day and they hop in my chat, or like they stream too and I can invite them on. I'm like, hey, you want to draw with me today, man? And like they're like, yeah, and we'll do it live on stream and we'll joke around and we'll draw live and that's like how that's how I communicate. And so I'm sure that there's plenty of people that feel left out or they can't step into that. I mean, even people my age, I know people that have had a very hard time adjusting to that stuff, and sometimes it prevents them from getting jobs. Usually have to figure out some way to bridge that gap. Uh, because I mean, I know that there's a lot of kids that graduate school even still that like they're socially awkward. They don't know how to talk to anybody, and on top of that, they're told like, oh, like you shouldn't post your film because like there are some There are some colleges, or no, sorry, there are some like film festivals that like won't take your film if it's already on YouTube, and so like don't post your film, and like be careful about posting your artwork because some people will steal it. And try to make shirts of it or something. And so there's all these kids that are graduating that like I look them up and I can't find like anything they've done. And and on top of that, they they'll make a film right out of school, and then they'll stop making films after that because they were like, I thought my first film was going to get me a job, and it didn't. And now what am I supposed to do? And it's like I mean, when you graduate, you have to learn how to like, you don't have a teacher like setting a schedule for you anymore. You have to decide whether you actually like doing this anymore on your own, and do you have the motivation to do that yourself? And if you don't, then I'm sorry, it's probably not going to work for you because this stuff is hard and it's so time consuming, and like there's so much grind to it. Even now, like I'm deep in uh to work in this animation shit, and like I still pull all-nighters. I'm still working crazy hours almost every week, and like working during the day, and then after I get off I'm like, okay, finally now I can draw my stuff, and I draw more. And like I mean it's endless, but I mean you start getting adjusting to new norms, and the norm is pretty high. The expectation is pretty high that like people want to hire somebody that lives and breathes this, and you can tell that they do it on their own. They think about it all the time. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was, when I was in my 20s and 30s, that's exactly what I did. I worked all day at the video game job, and then, I'd work an 8, 12-hour, 14-hour day, and I'd come home and put my kids to bed, and then I would go out into my shop, into my art studio, and I would paint, or I'd like work on, some rock posters or some merch design, or like I'd work. I'd work an extra 8 hours and I'd sleep for like 4 hours. I did that shit for like 15 or 20 years. I can't do it anymore. I'm just too fucking old.
Man, it, it's we're just two guys that are just talking about how much we work, and this is a really good podcast. Everybody's just listening to us. I work so much. Like it's crazy how much I work. These kids don't work, and I do. And I just work. I come home and I work, and I'm always in my house, and I just work, and I'm working while I'm in this podcast, because you have to multitask, and if you can't, then get out.
I actually had a guest on who would not stop working on a drawing the whole time we were having a conversation. It was hilarious because it was a perfect representation of who he is in real life. Like he is like the embodiment of art. His name's Gerald Tidwell. His website's humantree.com. He's in Kentucky. He's a special human being. But yeah, he just wouldn't stop drawing. He's just drawing the whole time. Which was amazing. I was like, that's
trying
awesome.
to turn your podcast into a drawing show, like, but you're not screen sharing,
right? But I couldn't see it. He's one of those guys where if I was like, well, you got to screen share that, he'd be like, I don't know what the fuck that is. What's screen sharing?
I'm just drawing this for me. This has nothing to do with you, dude.
He's like, I got stuff to do, dude.
Stop trying to spy on me.
Before the pandemic, did you still work at home a lot, or were you in different offices and studios and stuff? I'd imagine now you pretty much completely.
No, I mean, I was always, I did both. So I was in studios a lot, and I would commute, and I would go, or and when I wasn't doing that, I was writing in a cafe or whatever it is. But I also am fully functional as a small studio just in my room. Like I can record my voice stuff here. I have instruments to record the soundtracks for my shorts. I can make board, write, design, animate the shorts just from one room in my house.
That's awesome.
And that, I mean, that's what I do on my Twitch stream most of the time. Is I'm taking a short through all the steps live and talking about what I'm doing and that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely an inside person. I usually gravitate towards working at night when it's cooler.
Sure.
But lately I've had to wake up for a 9 to 5, a 9 to 5 animation job that's more strict. So some jobs will make you like they'll say like, hey, so we have a check-in in 2 weeks. Just have all of your boards in 2 weeks. I'll say, well, I'll talk to you then, and then that's it. They don't talk to you. They don't check in. Just 2 weeks. You can set your own schedule, do whatever you want. But I every once in a while I work on a show where they're like, okay, we're doing a morning meeting at 10 o'clock every other day, and be on call in case your director needs you at any time during the day, and just be in your seat from 9 to 6 or 10 to 7 or whatever it is.
Yeah, I always work better in the here's a list of things you need to do, and this is when they all need to be done. And I can I always, even when I was in school, it's like I fucking hated regular high school. And once I got into continuation school and I was like on an independent study like that, I thrived.
Yeah.
And I thrived in the game industry the same way, where it was like I had always had really good bosses where I could be like, okay, here's the deal. Just tell me all the assets you need and when you need them, break down the milestones, and I'll get it all done. And I don't think I ever in the 15 years I was in games ever turned anything in late ever.
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I turn stuff in late. I do, but I forget who told me this, but I heard advice once where you have to be two of three things on time, nice, or good, and you have to be two of those three things to get work.
That's really good.
And I'm nice and I'm good. But the thing is most of the directors that I've worked with, they know that like I might hand it in a day late. I usually check like, okay, can I hand this in a day late and it won't affect anybody else? Like if you're telling me to hand it in on a Friday and no one's going to look at it till Monday, can I hand it in? Can I hand it in on Monday? And usually I'll check first, but also it's like they know that if I take a little extra time on it, they're gonna have to spend less time on notes and having revisionists work on it and whatever, and
Right.
and they can trust me with that in general, usually. So that's usually how it works out. I don't recommend that for everybody, but like I said, you can get away with doing a lot or making mistakes if you're two of those three things. You don't have to be perfect.
I like it. I think I've always heard that as what is it? It's cheap, fast, good. You can have the customer can have two of them, but not all three.
That's funny. Yeah.
Because that's
so that's on the other end. That's on the client end.
That's on the
when
client
you're
end.
Clients. That's
funny. Oh yeah. As a person who makes their entire living dealing with customers or clients, yeah, that's like my entire existence.
What's your craziest client story? Do you have a crazy like a ridiculous client story that's funny, or is that weird to share those for you?
No, I mean I've gone through because I do.
You do a lot of these, so you talk about that a lot. Yeah.
Well, no, not that. It's that I do so many different things, and I've done so many different things over the years. Like I do band merch, I do album covers, I do custom commission paintings, I do art for card games, I airbrush ice hockey goalie masks. Like I do everything. Like I decided at some point, then rather than try to be an artist that was like a name person, I decided to kind of be a problem solver. You have something you need done, you come to me and I can do it. I can lay out your album cover, I can draw your album cover. You know what I mean? Like I can do.
Yeah.
So I have so many different types of clients that
I mean, you almost function like a producer, like in like hip hop, for example. There are certain producers that I watch a lot of these Twitch streams like this, but like like there are certain producers that they'll bring an artist on and they're like, what do you want to do? I can do any type of thing that you want to do. Do you want metal guitars in there? Do you want to do some Memphis shit? Do you want to do some SoCal shit? And like and they can figure out how to do that, and that's their brand. That's their brand as like I can basically take anything that you want to do, or sort of anticipate the next step in your evolution and do something different for you, versus somebody who like has one thing that they do for every single person and they're known for that. It seems like you there's like two lanes like that.
Yeah, I mean that's a little bit of what I do for sure. And I get super bored with doing the same thing all the time. So it's really the only way that I could have ever done I could have ever crafted my career.
Yeah.
But you know, in the 2000s I was doing a ton of death metal stuff, like album covers and stuff, and I had this had this German death metal band who wanted an album cover of Satan fishing, fly fishing on a river and catching the Jesus fish, you know, the that you see on the back of cars, but it was like actually
Yeah.
supposed to be like a actual real fish with like that, you know, lettering in like in the scales. And they wanted this. I was like, yeah, I'm not your guy. Like, I don't
That's
even know.
crazy.
I don't even know how. And I was like, it's first of all, it's dumb. Second of
Yeah,
all, like,
yeah. I wanted to ask you because I think there's what a lot of artists run into is they are so desperate to make money and for work that they end up taking a bunch of jobs, and it like whether it's like, you know, they want to be doing like metal looking stuff, but they take a bunch of sort of corporate looking design jobs, and what ends up happening is their portfolio ends up being all of this work that they hate doing, but because they have that work in their portfolio, they keep getting more of that work. So how often uh do you like turn down people that you're like, that's just not my vibe? Like I would rather hold off for somebody who pays me less to do something I like, you know, like that kind of thing.
yeah, I mean, there were definitely years of my career where that was the case, and my portfolio definitely does show some of that. Like, there'll be there are corporate logos in my basic portfolio, but it's like, especially, I find this in the merch design as much as anything, where, and actually, it's a thing that I really like. Where I became pretty well known for doing stuff for metal and punk bands, and but then when I got in with all the big merch companies, that wasn't always the work that was available. So I started doing stuff where it was like, you know, I did like tour shirts for Lionel Richie. You know,
Yeah.
I did some shirts for Carrie Underwood. I did a shirt for Paul McCartney. Like, I've done all of these like things that are very outside of what my normal thing is. But a lot of it, I think too, was the art directors at the merch companies were like, this guy can bring a little rock and roll to some of these things that aren't
Yeah.
necessarily
No, that's cool.
traditionally rock and roll. Like,
What
I
do you
did some
say no to? Like what kind of stuff do you say no to usually?
in the last probably 5 years. The only thing that I've been asked to do that is no for me is when I was painting the ice hockey goalie mask, like a lot. I got a lot of people who wanted me to do Trump stuff. Because
Okay.
the ice hockey community is a lot of conservative people. It's way
A
more
lot
of
of
like a
jockey guys, a
bro,
lot of yeah.
you know, and even to the
Gonna-
point of there's a lot of law enforcement and a lot of, you know, fire stuff, which is fine. I have no problem doing stuff for law enforcement. Or I come from a family of law enforcement, and so I have an understanding of all that stuff, and that's fine. I don't begrudge any of that, but I wasn't gonna paint Donald Trump on somebody's goalie mask. Just wasn't gonna do it. Um,
Related to that, I one time I got commissioned to do someone's album cover, and they wanted me to draw Trump getting curb stomped. And I was hesitant just because I didn't even want to draw him. I just didn't I don't like drawing him. But I did it, and like and the way that he described it, he was like, "Listen, I want this thing to be like gore grind as fuck. Like I want this to be like, you know," and it was like a hip hop thing or whatever. But he was like, I just saw this stuff from, I don't know what he was looking at, like a gore for a big nosebleed or whatever. He was like looking at some album covers that were like metal, and I was like, are you sure? And he was like, yeah, dude, yeah. And I showed it to him, and then he dropped off for like 3 days, and then I was like, hey, dude, what this sketch? What do you think? And he was like, um, actually, My mom said that this might actually prompt people to go curb stomp people in real life, and I actually don't really want to be responsible for anybody curb stomping anyone in real life. And like, and I was like, your mom? What? It was like a full grown man. He was like a full grown man, and I was like, "So your mom said it was a bad idea," and he was like, yeah. Can you just have like Donald Trump like falling in like some poop or something in his and his face is going on like a turd, and I was like, bye. I was like, bye, dude. I was like, no
Yeah.
way, bye, dude.
Yeah, one of the things though for sure is I never made a point to be like, no, I'm not painting Donald Trump. I would just tell his people I was busy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to have, I don't need to be, I'm not the person who's constantly trying to tell somebody else they're wrong. If I don't want to do
Yeah.
something, it's because I don't want to do it. And there's a way to say no without saying no.
No, for sure. And I've never like turned people down, like specifically saying like, fuck that. I mean, like I would if the message was fucked up enough. Like if someone
Right.
hit me up with like, hey, can you like I have this idea for my band and it's like and the cover's like racist as hell, I would be like, no thanks. Like
Yeah, for
there
sure.
there has been times that like that I was on a show that I told production that I wouldn't draw the thing. Like for instance, so I was an art director on this Adult Swim pilot called Chuck Deuce, and so it was they came to me and they were like, "Could we use like your drawing style? Would you be down to design this and oversee it?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's try it." And but the writer, like he made this the only female character in the show was this blow up doll, and her only plot was that she started dating another guy, and the other guy was a sentient orb that provided female orgasms or something like that. It was like a sex-driven plot. And I was like, okay, so your only female character in this whole show is a blow-up doll, and their only plot is like a sex thing. And it was right at the time where Adult Swim was getting in trouble for saying some sexist shit. And I was like, what are you guys doing? I was like, and I talked to some of the producers, and I was like, I'm not drawing this. And but before I did that, I drew like three or four sheets of alternative character designs with a bunch of pitches for alternate routes to take it. So I wasn't just coming to them with like, I'm not doing this. I can't I was like, here's an alternate route. She's a marine biologist. Make her a fucking mermaid or some shit. Like she like make her something that has to do with her character instead of this other thing. And then I would be down, and they were like, yeah, you're right. And the writer was mad as hell, but they ended up making him change it. And I mean, but
It's like
every once in
the
a
only
while,
female character was literally a sex object. Not even not
literally
even a
sex object, yeah.
figurative sex object, an actual literal sex object. Whatever.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so
that's awful.
every once in a while, I'll come to a thing where I have enough power on the thing to be like, it stops with me. I'm not going to do it if it continues like that. And that's, I guess, my privilege coming up in the industry and in gaining more responsibility or whatever. I'm sure that when I was younger, I wouldn't have done that, but more recently, I've come to situations where I was like, I'm not doing that, dude. Like, every once in a while, it happens.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the no at this point for me is that people do not have enough budget to pay me for the thing that they have in their mind to do, and I'm at the point now where I can just be like, no, I've got enough.
I mean,
I
that's
never
100%.
don't have work. I have had constant work now for over a decade. I don't need to take. I will take less money if it's a job I want to do, or if it's a simple thing. But sometimes you get people who let an album cover idea and they want a painting that's going to take like 120 hours, and they're like, well, I got like $250, and it's like, no.
I mean,
No.
I would say almost once a week, I get hit up to do a 5 or 6 minute music video for probably $300 that they have or something like that.
I know. It's
and
ridiculous.
and it would, and I have to explain to them like, dog, doing that would take me 3 months working full time, and that's not going to pay my rent, man. And then I give them my rate, and they're like, whoa, and I'm like, dog, like animation takes a long time, and
It's like, this is my fucking
expensive.
job. I do this for a living. It's not it's not my hobby.
But also when so half the time I end up like having to sort of teach this client, and I usually, like, I say, like, for next time, if you ever approach somebody, like, basically for animation, when you're paying somebody to do something, you have to assume that who you're approaching has a small team of people, but because when it comes to animation production, the editor slash compositor, if you want to combine those into a job, animator, designer, storyboard artist. Sometimes there's some writing involved or something. There's these, at least like 3 or 4 people you have to expect to be paying. And if you're not paying them, you're paying one person to do all those jobs. And so usually even if it's just me working on a project, I tell them that like that's not going to cover my team, because worst comes to worst, I might take it on as just me, but I might run into a time crunch and I have to hire other people, and
Sure.
I need to have the money to be able to do that.
Yeah. That's always, that's like just kind of the universal, like, freelance professional artist, designer, illustrator story, is people are like, why is it so expensive? And it's like,
Yeah.
I had it explained to me. I was actually one of the ways I got into the idea of having a podcast is I was a guest on another podcast. We were talking about
It's contagious.
the goalie mask industry, and how I was constantly annoyed that my customers were always, it was a constant lowball situation. Not with everybody, but that was the standard, was like, oh my God, like, why is it so much? And why is it going to take you so long? And it was put to me by the host of the podcast, the Adventures in Design podcast, for anybody who wants, a lot of my listeners have probably heard that podcast, but he was like, well, think about it. You're dealing with people who've probably never hired an artist in their life, and they don't have any idea what's going on.
And they don't have any artist friends either half the time,
Yeah. And so it's like, he's like, this is the first time they've ever dealt with this. And so maybe they just, they don't know. And it's like that, I guess that's fair. But at the same time, it's like, painting one of those goalie masks is like anywhere between like 20 and 40 hours worth of work. And it's like, how much do you get paid for 40 hours of your work time? Expect to pay me at least that much, right?
Yeah.
But then I have other customers who are like, there is no budget. I want you to do the exact best thing you can, and whatever it costs me, it costs me. And those people are like gold, But I don't really do a lot of the goalie mask stuff these days. I kind of got burnt out on it, and then I kind of also was like, I kind of got tired of a lot of the clientele. Like I was saying, they there's a lot of spoiled suburban moms who were like trying to get their kids mask painted, and it was like, well, why do I have to wait 10 weeks? I'm like, because 50 people in front of you gave me a deposit, and well, what if I just pay you to, like, jump me in the line? And it's like, we need it next week. And I'm like, even if I had the time, you couldn't have it next week. And it's like just a lot of like, like getting art direction from people who have absolutely no idea what they're doing also kind of got old. But not complaining too much, because it was a job that I've supported myself with, for, probably 7 or 8 years. And I actually spent all day today painting a goalie mask, and I'm going to spend.
Damn.
And it's like,
I'll be honest with you, dude. I didn't even know that was a thing that someone did.
Yeah, dude. It was like, a 60-hour a week job for like 7 years for me. I was doing like,
that's nuts. I've never even heard of that. That's awesome. That's awesome. What a niche, man.
Yeah. And there's not a ton of guys who do it. And the big goal is to get some mass into the NHL. Because then then you can kind of charge whatever you want, but it's nearly impossible to crack that nut. And so it was like,
Have you ever cracked that nut?
I have not cracked that nut. No.
Let's see how many times we can say crack that nut.
So yeah, so I mean, I still have some clients that I'll do goalie masks for, because that was the last thing I sat down and had to master before the podcast, was how to airbrush really well enough, like a professional level airbrusher,
like make it look really, really clean. And yeah,
and like, there was a lot of tools, there was a lot of classes, there was a lot of, like, airbrush is an insanely difficult tool to master. It just takes, like, you can pick up a paintbrush and kind of figure out how to make things look okay if you have any kind of skill at all. But it's like airbrushing is this, it's the only art tool that you don't actually touch the surface that you're creating on. And so you got to get your head around that first.
Is it more like getting good at like yo-yoing? Like you learn a bunch of tricks to make certain things work, and like you're like
kind of, actually, it's kind of true, because there's a lot of it's a lot of muscle memory with your finger, because you're going air to, you turn on the air by pushing down, and you pull back to release how much paint you want. So there's a lot of muscle memory in this movement.
That's not stuff that we've practiced in art school, Nope. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. And then, like, if you want it to hold up to 80-mile-an-hour hockey pucks hitting it, and skates and sticks and stuff like that, goalie's mask its job is to keep somebody from getting hurt. So it gets hit a lot. So to be able to make a product that also can withstand the amount of damage that's coming to it, took a lot. I mean, it's basically essentially like learning how to paint a car, because the paint and the processes are almost exactly the same as painting a car. So there's a lot of, like, what people don't understand, what the average person doesn't understand about airbrushing a goalie mask, is that half of the time you have invested in the project is in prep. It's in sanding, it's in degreasing, it's in primer, it's in, base coat, and then at the end it's in clear coat, like automotive clear coat, and be able to shoot that so that it's glass, like a car. It's a lot that goes, like, the fun, cool art part. Like, people just think, I think you sit down and just do that and it's done. And it's like, no, man, like, if I spend 30 hours on a goalie mask, 15 of those hours are in boring, sanding, and, primering and stuff. And so, I got kind of burned on it, but I still enjoy doing them once in a while. And they pay well enough that, I can get them done fast enough now that if I need cash, I can just be like, hey, I can just bust it out.
No, that's dope, man. I mean, that's what I started feeling about like commissions. Like, every once in a while, there's a time. I mean, it's gratifying to know that, like, if I ever need to, for instance, like, oh, rent was tight this week, we burned through our savings buying a big thing, like, I want to have an extra cushion for groceries or something like that, I can, like, tweet out, like, hey, like, Venmo me $10 and I'll draw you a shitty portrait that makes you look stupid. And and do something, like, literally every drawing is like a funny drawing that takes me under 5 minutes. And like, I did it a little while ago. I drew one really nice looking frame, that, like, an ornate frame for these stupid drawings to sit in, that I drew just once. And then everybody got these, like, just like shit, like, it looks like I drew it with my left hand and I made them look stupid. And it was like this, but like, you can
That's
do
great,
like coming up with like a specific thing, because sometimes people have trouble coming up with their own commission thing. Sometimes
Sure.
if you say, like, I'm doing I'll turn your pet into a zombie in a drawing, or I'll draw your pet eating you, and that's the specific thing. But it's nice to know that I have that if I want to. In between jobs, I could be like, hey, this week I'm opening up my commission slots and do a bunch of like, hey, I got these like this special handmade paper and some Copics. I'll do some handmade art. But and I think that it's gratifying just knowing that potentially I could support myself for a little bit, and at any time suddenly, like if there's an
Sure.
emergency.
And,
That's nice.
to speak on that just a teeny bit, that was the reason why I decided not to go into the animation industry and stayed in games back in the day. Was I was like, I had kids and stuff, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to, because this is before the big boom. Like it was like animation was just starting to come back. Like
Hmm.
the Nicktoons were a thing, and the Cartoon Network was a new thing, and so there wasn't a ton of work, and so it was like I'd have animation friends who were like, no, I didn't work for like 8 months because there was there wasn't enough productions, and I don't think that I think animation is such a massive space in the entertainment world now that I think it's
Yeah.
probably less likely. But back in the day, I wasn't going to make that choice. It's like I was saying, like I got offered a position on the original Space Jam, and it was like, it was crazy because it was in the reshoots, and so it was like, or in all the retakes, and so there would have been like 6 months worth of work, and it would have like I would have made like 100 grand or something. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound shitty, but then like, what if I don't work for another 6 months after that? I got to feed my kids. So,
No,
I
totally.
stayed in
No,
games.
I get it.
But then games ended up being the same way. Like you work on a project, get staffed up, and then when the project is done, everybody gets laid off. But I actually managed to not succumb as a victim of that by being somebody who was
Yeah.
easy to work with. And I was always one of the people who ended up staying and bridging to the next production. But
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
tough out here to be an artist, man. No matter
what
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 kind of art you're doing.
what I usually tell parents that are there, I mean, there are a lot of parents that are like worried about like my kid wants to be an animator and they're freaking out because their kid wants to be an artist, like my kid's going to be poor or whatever. And usually what I tell them is that like if they really are set on doing it, like compared to being a painter or even sometimes an illustrator, like there are very few art jobs where there are companies that pay like 60 of them at a time for almost a whole year,
Right.
like to work. And then then you jump to another production. It just doesn't, like most jobs are like you're working freelance, and so honestly, as far I usually tell them, like, as far as like being an artist goes, like you're in some of the best business decision to go to go into, because I
Right.
mean,
Right.
there's
Especially
not going to
nowadays,
stop being
there's
cartoons on shows,
oh my god, and like
and
with the advent of like adult animation, like just being such a huge thing, like after Adult Swim became such a big thing, and then like all of the major TV networks are, they're doing
yeah,
Family
man.
Guy, they're doing, you know, Bob's Burgers. Like there's so much animation being made these days. Um, it's insane. It's crazy. For if I was 20 something years old
Yeah.
and I was still the same person that I am,
If you got
there's
asked
just
to animate Space Jam 2, then you would have been like, I quit this video game. I'm gonna go animate LeBron get
no, I don't know that I would have done that, but I definitely would
cyberspace or
have worked
whatever.
on, if I'd had a chance to work on SpongeBob, you couldn't have made me say no to that. I would have worked
For
on
sure.
SpongeBob in 2 seconds. It wouldn't have been a no brainer, but SpongeBob, came out just a little after. But I ended up having a friend that I worked with in the game industry who worked on SpongeBob, so I probably could have made that happen. Oh man, this has been a really awesome conversation, dude. I appreciate you giving me your time. I
Yeah,
know that
man.
you are a busy dude, um, and I will get back to you with when the episode's going to be out. It shouldn't be too long. And yeah, I'm gonna start watching some of your Twitch stuff. It sounds like a really fun. It sounds like a fun time.
Nice, man. Yeah, dude, I'm stoked about it. This last one I was really excited about because I've basically I have them share their screen while they're drawing, and then I have mine, and it video captures both of them, And in this last one, we were drawing with a color key green background, like a green screen. And then on Twitch, I'm live compositing it onto one unified background. So it looks like we're drawing live on one unified background and animating on it. And
wow.
like on the last one we did, I made like a custom ring for there's like a cowboy duel. And so the chat was like, saying, it has to be it's like a chef cowboy. And so we would each do our own interpretation of a chef cowboy doing a certain type of gun attack. And it would be a loop, a gun loop or whatever. But they were like both in a little face off on one background, in sort of like a seamless composite just live. And it's been fun to like grow what the show is. And I mean, sometimes we do like still drawings and stuff, but it's honestly, it's a fun excuse for me to draw with a bunch of people that I wouldn't normally have an excuse to draw with, but because I have this little platform and I call it a show, I get to draw with people that I've never even talked to before, but I want to draw with. So like I can reach out to somebody that's for instance, more recently I reached out to it was Dana Terrace, the creator of Owl House, which is a Disney show that a bunch of people like, and I'd never talked to her before, but I reached out and I was like, hey, I do this thing, I think you'd be a really fun guest, I like your drawings. And she was like, yeah, that sounds dope. And we ended up having a great conversation. And you start realizing that like a lot of people, especially if they're just nice people, are like sort of one conversation away from like hanging out with you in some way if you find a way to do it.
Right.
If you make the platform and and I try to make it fun. I try to make it fun for the guests,
That's definitely been the case with this podcast. Is it's like I've gotten so many new friends that I'd never met, didn't talk, had never spoken to. Like, because now the show is successful enough that I get a lot of people coming to me to be guests, and I get
that's awesome. Hell
agencies that are booking authors, and management that is trying to book bands and stuff. So I get to meet people that like I've met authors where I like got to sit down and read their book and then talk to them, and
that's so fun, man.
and so it's like now I get to add you to that too. So the next time I'm over,
I appreciate you hitting me up. I feel special.
The next time I'm over in Echo Park, I'll throw some rocks up at your window and get you to come down.
Well, bring your shitty baby, and I'll make fun of it outside my window. No, dude, no, for real. If you're around sometime and you want to go to get a coffee or grab something to eat, I'm down, dude. It was fun. It was fun talking to you.
Yeah, cool, man. Thanks a lot, and I will be in touch.
All right, dude. Am I jumping off the call now or do I wait?
You can wait.